committee/exemption request, correct? Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, you didn't mention.
I didn't hear the, I'm sorry.
It's the same wording as the prior.
It's the same wording as the prior agenda. Okay, so now, when you sent Ms. Hines the email, Exhibit 12, when you sent her an email on October 12th, which was after the October 7th meeting was scheduled and canceled, but before the October 14th meeting happened, when you said, "Hi, Stephanie, we will be meeting with the school committee Thursday to clarify our policy." Did you mean that you were meeting in executive session on October 14th to clarify the policy?
Yes.
So the purpose of the language in the executive session was for the committee to meet to discuss, to clarify their policy in response to Ms. Hines' request.
That's not what I said.
Is that true or not?
That's not what I said.
Is it true or not?
No,
So the purpose of the meeting was not to respond to Ms. Hines' request,
that's correct.
but it was to discuss how you would respond to certain religious exemption requests.
No.
I'm confused.
So
So why don't you explain to me, so I don't have to guess, when you said, "We're going to clarify our policy at the school committee meeting," what specifically were you clarifying?
implementation of COVID-19 vaccine mandate and exemption request.
What about the policy were you clarifying?
We were seeking some clarification on implementation.
What clarification were you seeking?
It's privileged.
You don't get to object, Mr. Fielder. Only your lawyer does. There's no objection. I'll ask the question again. Could you please repeat the question?
Question, what clarification were you seeking?
Seeking clarification on how to implement the policy.
Were you seeking clarification on how to implement the policy with regard to religious exemptions?
Yes.
Were you seeking to determine whether or not you could deny religious exemptions?
No.
You were not seeking to clarify whether or not the policy allowed you to deny a religious exemption. That's your testimony?
Yes.
Then why did you respond to Ms. Hines that the committee was going to clarify the policy when the only purpose to respond to her was to responding to her religious exemption request? What other purpose would you be saying that to her?
I don't understand your question.
When you said to Ms. Hines on October 12th, "We will be meeting with the committee to clarify our policy," you were referring to her religious exemption request, weren't you?
In the email to her, yes.
Okay. So when you're saying to Ms. Hines, "We're going to meet with the committee to clarify the religious exemption part of the policy," that's what you meant.
That's not what I wrote down.
So were you purposely misleading Ms. Hines into thinking that's what you were going to do?
Can you read back my comment?
We will be meeting. Ms. Hines, email to you. Hi. I am curious if you have a chance to review my request and have an updated timeline as to when the decision will be made. That's at 11:25 a.m. on October 12th. A mere 8 minutes later, you respond at 11:33 a.m. Hi, Stephanie. We will be meeting with the school committee Thursday to clarify our policy. Is it your testimony that when you said clarify our policy, you weren't talking about her request regarding the religious exemption?
Not specifically.
So you were referring to something else?
Yeah.
And you left it to Ms. Hines to guess what that was. You purposely misled her to think that you were going to talk about her religious exemption request 2 days later at a school committee meeting. You purposely misled her?
Objection.
Mr. Fiore?
Objection.
Did you purposely mislead Ms. Hines into thinking that her religious exemption request was going to be discussed at the school committee meeting on October 14th?
I can't speak for Ms. Hines.
Did you intend to mislead her?
No,
You intended to give her accurate information.
which I did.
And the accurate information is, In response to her inquiry about her religious exemption request, your response was, we're meeting with the committee to clarify that. Correct?
You're making that connection.
Well, that's what this makes, that's the connection this makes, that's the connection that Ms. Hines is gonna make, that's the connection that any sane human being is gonna make, unless you're trying to mislead them, Mr. Fiore.
Objection. Objection to.
I will let the record reflect how misleading that is.
Objection.
If Mr. Fiore doesn't want to clarify it,
That statement will be stricken, Mr. Picciarelli. This is not the time in the hearing for argument.
okay, I'll save it for right. By the way, as of October 12th, at 11:33 a.m., had you and Mr. Fiore, you and Mr. Missouri decided whether or not to grant Ms. Hines' religious exemption request? You haven't made that decision as of October 12th at 11:33 a.m.
That's correct.
Had you made it as before 6 p.m. on October 14th? You made it after 6 p.m. on October 14th?
Correct.
Okay. And did you make it as a result of this executive session meeting?
No.
The executive session meeting had no impact on whether or not you were going to grant or deny that
Objection
exemption?
misstates the testimony. He completely misstated the testimony. Objection to form.
Sustained.
So, did the meeting on October 14th with the committee have any impact on your decision to deny the religious exemption request?
Not specifically.
It had some impact on it?
We were seeking implementation guidance, and that's what we received.
Okay. And the implementation guidance you were seeking was from the school committee?
So the executive session was with, correct.
Well, your legal counsel was there too, and I'm asking you, is it your testimony that on October 14th in executive session, you were seeking guidance from the school committee as to how to implement their policy?
Objection. This is privileged material.
No, it's not. If he's asking, it's absolutely not privileged material. If this should have been done in open session, if the purpose of the meeting was to inquire of the school committee members their advice as to implementing this policy, under what possible exemption does that qualify?
Okay, the objection is sustained because the issue in this hearing is whether there is good and just cause. You want to raise an Open Meetings Act issue. I suggest you raise those with the judge.
No, I'm asking the question, I'm asking whether or not this witness was asking the committee members for their input on implementing the policy. The objection was it's privileged because it was an executive session.
That the privilege covers situations in which legal counsel is giving advice.
I didn't ask the legal counsel advice, I asked if it
No,
was,
I'm sorry, Mr. Picciarelli, the objection is sustained.
so after the meeting on October 14th, when did you decide to deny these religious exemption requests?
Sometime between then and the letter being issued.
So between then and October 18th? Okay. So did you and Mr. Missouri have another meeting after the school committee meeting in which to discuss these religious exemption requests?
Yes.
Okay. And when did that meeting take place?
I don't know the specific time.
But sometime between those 4 days. Okay. Was there anybody else at that meeting besides you and Mr. Missouri?
Not in person.
I'm sorry?
Not in person.
By phone, by email, by
Yes.
carrier pigeon, how? Who else was present and how were they present?
Was that one question?
No, it's two questions, but I think you're smart enough to be able to answer them both at the same time.
Mr. Picciarelli, can you simply...
If he's gonna be snarky, I'm gonna be snarky back.
And
This is the most obnoxious witness I've practically
I'm-
ever dealt with.
I'm-
Not only is he
Here he
not-
is.
Mr.
Wait a minute.
Picciarelli, I'm going to warn you that I will adjourn this hearing and we'll come back another night. Is that what you would like?
Well, I've asked you
Because of you.
to direct the witness to not be so obnoxious and to answer the question. It's a reasonable question.
I'm going to, again, strike your statements, and I will presume that you're making them because of the late hour. Ask the question.
There's a question pending, I'm asking the witness to answer.
Which could I have a...
Who was present and how were they present?
You can answer that question.
Mr. Masori and legal counsel
And how was legal counsel present?
by phone.
So you had another meeting after to discuss the religious exemption with the district legal counsel.
Yeah, I didn't say it was limited to one meeting.
You had more than one meeting between October 14th and October 18th? Possibly? Was legal counsel present at all of those meetings?
I can't say everyone.
Was she present for the entirety of the meeting?
Which meeting are we talking about?
Any of the meetings between October 14th and October 18th?
Yeah, possibly.
Possibly she was present the whole time? But possibly there was a time when you and Mr. Masori talked without her present?
Correct.
Okay. Was there a time when you and Mr. Masori talked without Ms. Rapport being present?
Yeah,
And during that time, did you discuss the religious exemption request?
yes.
And when did you make the decision to deny it?
Sometime between the 14th and 18th.
Was that decision made between you and Mr. Masori, or between you and Mr. Masori and Ms. Rapport?
Me and Mr. Masori.
And was that your recommendation to Mr. Masori? Was it Mr. Masori's recommendation to you? Do you remember whose idea it was? That in the morning? Nothing further.
Ms. Rapport, do you have any cross-examination?
We have no redirect.
With trust, Ms. Rapport.
Did you say you were done?
Yeah, no, I think you maybe had no cross,
Recross.
or
um,
original cross.
It's cross, Ms. Rapport.
We have no further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Rapport. Do you have another witness, Mr. Giroux?
If I can have, knowing the time, I can have 2 minutes. I'll be calling my clients very quickly. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Thank you.
It's 10:01.
You don't need to start during your deliberation, right?
Well, the answer, understate, now.
Think about it.